A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
Have you ever wondered if the Lion King's circle of life was designed to control more than just the kingdom's animals? As a kid, I just accepted this as normal, but when I rewatched it as an adult, I realized something unsettling. Mufasa is teaching Simba which of his subjects they're allowed to eat. This revelation completely changes how I see the movie, because the hyenas' rebellion against the lions suddenly makes perfect sense. They were fighting against a system that kept them starving in the elephant graveyard, while the lions lived in luxury. Today we're going to explore the dark political theories that transformed the Lion King from a simple hero's journey into a complex story about power, propaganda, and perspective. What if I told you the most iconic Disney philosophy might actually be a clever form of propaganda created by the ruling class to maintain control over the Pride Lands? We've all grown up singing along to The Circle of Life with its beautiful imagery and powerful message about balance in nature. But look closer at what's really happening in this seemingly innocent philosophy. The Circle of Life is a carefully constructed system that keeps the lions in power while convincing everyone else that being eaten is just their natural role in the world. Think about that famous scene where Mufasa takes young Simba to the top of Pride Rock and gestures to the vast kingdom, saying everything the light touches is our kingdom. It sounds majestic until you realize what he's actually saying. All these animals are both their subjects and their potential dinner. Mufasa explains this disturbing reality so poetically. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. This convenient justification masks a brutal truth. Yes, we eat you, but someday you'll get to eat what's left of us through the grass, so it's all fair. The entire presentation resembles a well-crafted political campaign where tyranny disguises itself as natural law and balance. But nobody asks the other animals how they feel about this system. Instead, we see them at the beginning of the movie, traveling long distances just to bow down to baby Simba. They're literally celebrating the birth of the creature who will one day decide which of them becomes dinner. Why would prey animals be so excited about this? Because they've been thoroughly indoctrinated into accepting their role in the circle of life. The whole opening sequence takes on a much darker tone when you analyze what's actually happening. All these different species gathering to celebrate Simba's birth aren't just honoring a new prince. They're essentially celebrating the continuation of a system where they remain at the bottom of the hierarchy. The zebras, antelopes, and other prey animals are applauding their future predator who will maintain the status quo that keeps them as potential food. Similarly, just as government propaganda works by appealing to emotion rather than reason, the Circle of Life song with its soaring melody creates an emotional impact that overrides any logical objections. The music makes everyone feel good about a system that primarily benefits those at the top of the food chain. The stirring composition presents the idea of some animals eating others as this beautiful natural process that everyone should accept without question. Who would question such a beautiful philosophy when the emotional response is so overwhelming? Even the visuals reinforce this propaganda. The golden sunlight, the reverent gathering of animals, the dramatic lifting of baby Simba, it all creates this sense of divine rightness about the lion's rule. The entire sequence is designed to make the audience feel that this is the natural order, that lions are meant to rule and other animals are meant to serve, and sometimes be served as dinner. When you break it down, the Circle of Life isn't just a beautiful philosophy about nature's balance. It's actually a brilliant propaganda tool created by the lions to maintain their position of power while making their subjects believe their role as food is natural and even noble. It convinces the prey animals that being eaten is their destiny and part of some grand design rather than just the convenient arrangement for those with the sharp teeth and political power. Behind every powerful propaganda system stands someone who benefits most from maintaining that order. In the Pride Lands, that figure isn't actually Scar, it's Mufasa. The golden-maned king were meant to revere actually enforced rigid boundaries, controlled resources, and condemned entire species to life in barren wastelands, while his pride enjoyed abundance at the top of Pride Rock. When Mufasa warns Simba against the elephant graveyard, we see his true governance style. A ruler enforcing strict borders and maintaining segregation. The elephant graveyard serves as the barren wasteland where Mufasa has forced the hyenas to live with no food or resources while the lions enjoy the lush Pride Lands just steps away. The stark visual contrast between the vibrant pride lands and the desolate elephant graveyard physically manifests the inequality that Mufasa's leadership creates and maintains. Hyenas are blocked from hunting in the pride lands and must pick through bones and scraps in their territory. Mufasa never questions whether this arrangement might be unfair or considers that hyenas deserve access to food too. He violently attacks them when they cross his established border, using force to keep them in their assigned place. Starving at the edges of his kingdom, this pattern extends to his own family. Look at how he treats Scar, his brother. He dismisses him completely, allowing him to be isolated from the pride. If Mufasa can't show fairness to his own flesh and blood, how can we expect him to treat other species with compassion? Analyzing Mufasa's leadership style reveals his teachings to Simba aren't about fairness or justice at all. His lessons focus on maintaining lion supremacy and instructing his son on which animals they're allowed to eat. He grooms his successor to continue the predatory mindset that keeps lions at the top of the food chain, both literally and politically. The monarchy Mufasa established grants lions complete dominion over every other species without their consent. The animals don't vote on who rules them. They simply accept the divine right of lions to decide their fate. Mufasa's rule mirrors real-world monarchies and colonial powers that have historically used resource control and segregation to maintain dominance over marginalized groups. Disney presents Mufasa wrapped in golden light, with James Earl Jones's deep voice of authority, making us believe he's the ideal leader. But his actual policies create a society where some animals enjoy luxury and abundance, while others face starvation and desolation. Mufasa personally ensures this division continues through force and intimidation, attacking any who challenge the boundaries he's established. Yes, Mufasa is portrayed as loving to his son and immediate family. Yes, he's majestic and powerful, but these qualities only make him a more effective enforcer of an unjust system. His charisma and authority don't make his actions right. They make his propaganda more effective and his control more absolute. So when we celebrate Mufasa as this perfect king, what are we actually celebrating? A ruler who maintained extreme inequality, enforced segregation, claimed ownership over lands and beings without their input, and taught his son to continue the same oppressive system. That doesn't sound like a hero. It sounds like the true villain of the story who's been hidden behind magnificent animation and an iconic voice performance. What if the characters we've been taught to hate most were actually fighting for their very survival? That chilling line from Shenzi, "We haven't had a king with that much power in a meal," wasn't just a threat to scare Simba and his friends. It's actually a desperate admission about the reality of hyena existence under Mufasa's reign. These aren't cackling villains plotting evil. They're starving citizens pushed to the brink by systematic oppression. Think about how Disney visually codes the hyenas as evil. Those hunched postures with their bones protruding through their skin, and those haunting eyes that glow in the shadows reflect their starvation and desperation more than inherent villainy. These animation techniques make us immediately distrust the hyenas without questioning why they behave this way. It's like historical propaganda that depicted starving immigrants or refugees as dangerous threats rather than people in need of help. The film brilliantly manipulates us into accepting an entire species being condemned to starvation in a barren wasteland. The elephant graveyard is the physical manifestation of the Pride Land's brutal inequality. It's the designated zone where hyenas are forced to exist simply because of their species, similar to segregated neighborhoods or refugee camps throughout history. There's no food, no water, no life, just bones and geysers and shadows. And why? Not because they committed crimes, but simply because they were born hyenas in a lion's kingdom. When the hyenas join forces with Scar, the movie wants us to see this as proof of their evil nature, but their alliance is born from desperation. Scar offers them something revolutionary: food and dignity. He gives them hope of escaping their prison of starvation. Their motivation is survival, but can desperate measures ever be entirely free of tyranny? This question haunts their alliance with Scar throughout the film. The movie further manipulates our perception during Be Prepared, when the hyenas march in Nazi-like formation. This visual cue connects the hyenas with fascism, making their hunger for equality seem dangerous. But who's really enforcing fascist principles? The starving population fighting for resources, or the ruling lions who maintain strict segregation, control all resources, and preserve power through violence? Even the way the hyenas speak is designed to make us see them as lesser beings. While the lions speak with refined British accents associated with with royalty, the hyenas have distinctly different speech patterns, coded language that marks them as other and less civilized, similar to how accents and dialects have been used to justify discrimination throughout human history. When you analyze what the hyenas want, food, integration, an end to forced segregation, these aren't the demands of villains, but the basic rights any group would fight for. Their actions represent a justified uprising against an unjust monarchy, rather than an evil scheme. The real genius of The Lion King is how effectively it makes us cheer for the maintenance of an oppressive status quo. We celebrate when Simba returns to drive the hyenas back into starvation and exile, never questioning if there might be a more just solution. Throughout history, ruling powers have painted marginalized communities as inherently dangerous to justify their exclusion from society's resources. The Lion King recreates this pattern so effectively that generations of viewers never question why an entire species being condemned to starvation might actually be the real injustice of the story. The propaganda doesn't stop with just the hyenas, but extends to the character who dared to ally with them. When Scar says, "I'm surrounded by idiots," we laugh at his arrogance, but that line reveals his deep frustration that no one else recognizes the obvious injustice built into the very foundation of Pride Rock. The villain is actually the only revolutionary voice in a story that desperately needs one. Consider this for a moment. Scar, the sleek, sardonic lion with the British accent, becomes an easy target for our hatred through Disney's clever character design. That scar across his eye, his thin, angular build, contrasting with Mufasa's heroic physique and his scheming personality all push us toward a predetermined conclusion. But what was Scar actually fighting for beneath these visual cues? Yes, he killed Mufasa, which is unquestionably wrong, but the film never presents any alternative path for changing the Pride Lands' system. There's no democratic process, no council of animals, no constitutional monarchy. Just absolute power passed down from father to son forever. When revolutionaries are completely locked out of the political process, what historical options remain? The movie avoids this uncomfortable question entirely. What happens when Scar takes power? His first action breaks down the borders, allowing hyenas to integrate into Pride Land society. He doesn't keep them as second-class citizens. He invites them to share in resources previously denied to them, like early experiments with democratic reforms. Scar's new social order is messy and imperfect, but represents a genuine attempt to reimagine their society beyond the rigid hierarchy that existed before. The barren landscape under Scar's rule raises questions too. Is this actually Scar's fault, or a natural drought that would have happened regardless of who sat on Pride Rock? The lands return to fertility suspiciously quickly when Simba takes over. That's not how ecosystems work. Real environmental recovery takes years, not minutes after rain. This magical recovery manipulates our perception, linking Scar with devastation and Simba with prosperity. The lioness's refusal to hunt for Scar is framed as righteous resistance, but amounts to deliberate sabotage of the food supply during a potential drought. Their actions contribute to the food shortage, yet the film places all blame on Scar and his hyena allies, never questioning whether the lionesses share responsibility for the kingdom's hardships. During Be Prepared, Scar promises the hyenas they'll never go hungry again, literally promising food to the starving. Yet the song features goose-stepping hyenas amid green smoke and Nazi-inspired visuals. This heavy-handed symbolism codes any challenge to the established order as inherently evil, regardless of its actual content or goals. Scar stands alone as the character who questions anything in the entire movie, while everyone else, from Zazu to Nala to the hyenas, simply accepts their place in the hierarchy. Only Scar looks at the system and declares it unjust. That's not villainy, that's revolutionary thinking, historically demonized by those in power. Even in leadership, Scar attempts something different from Mufasa's strict authoritarian approach. His attempt at a communal living arrangement might be chaotic. First attempts at new social structures often are, but he's trying to create a multi-species community where predator and prey might coexist in ways the circle of life philosophy never even attempts to address. Who's the real narrator of The Lion King? What if everything we've been shown is just history written by the victors? When we think about it, the entire story is filtered through the royal bloodline or their loyal servants, but have we ever questioned if this is just Simba's approved version of events to justify his return to power? Throughout the movie, prey animals never get a meaningful voice about who rules over them. They're completely silent about a system that justifies their consumption. When Rafiki announces the king has returned and everyone celebrates, nobody questions whether a lion who abandoned his kingdom for years to eat bugs with a meerkat deserves to rule. What if we looked at this story through a different lens? The magical environmental transformation when Simba defeats Scar is suspiciously convenient. Did you notice how the Pride Lands instantly transform from barren wasteland to lush paradise the moment Simba takes over? Real ecological recovery takes years or decades, but the movie shows it as an immediate divine blessing confirming Simba's rightful place. This visual miracle suggests the land itself recognizes the true king, exactly the kind of divine right propaganda human monarchies have used for centuries. When Simba defeats Scar, we cheer as the hyenas are driven back to starvation and segregation. The movie never asks if there might be a better solution than returning to the exact same system that created problems in the first place. What if instead of banishing the hyenas, Simba had worked with them to create a more equitable Pride Lands? That alternative is never explored because it would challenge the fundamental power structure the movie upholds. The Hakuna Matata philosophy reveals Simba's extreme privilege. While his subjects suffer under Scar's rule and lionesses struggle to find food, Simba lives carefree far from these problems. He abandoned his responsibilities and faced zero consequences for his desertion. Yet the movie portrays his return as heroic rather than questioning his years of neglect while others suffered. The movie's structure reinforces its propaganda nature. We never see different species discussing governance or any democratic processes being considered. The only options presented are good lion rule or bad lion rule. The possibility of a non-lion leader or representative government is completely absent from the narrative. The ending solidifies this propaganda by showing all animals gathering to celebrate Simba and Nala's cub, continuing lion supremacy without questioning whether this system serves everyone. The prey animals celebrate the birth of their future predator, accepting a hierarchy they never consented to. The film portrays this as beautiful, rather than recognizing that these animals are celebrating their own subjugation. What's particularly troubling is how effective this propaganda is on us as viewers. We root for Simba, cheer when he defeats Scar, and feel warm and fuzzy when the rightful king takes his place. The film's gorgeous animation, stirring music, and compelling character arcs make us emotionally invest in returning to a system that, when examined closely, is fundamentally unjust. The Lion King exemplifies how the most effective propaganda doesn't feel like propaganda at all. It feels like a beautiful story we're happy to believe. So when we watch The Lion King again, we might find ourselves questioning what these beloved Disney scenes are actually telling us. Critics have pointed out that children's media, especially Disney films like The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, often reinforce existing power structures through their storytelling. What if this beloved classic actually mirrors real-world systems where those in power use appealing narratives to maintain control? Online discussions show that many fans have begun approaching the film with renewed curiosity, noting how the monarchy and power dynamics depicted feel strangely relevant today. When those opening drums of Circle of Life start playing, you might notice the subtle messaging about who deserves power and who doesn't. You might even catch yourself sympathizing with characters you once thought were villains, because maybe this isn't just a story about good versus evil, but about whose perspective gets to define what good actually means. The most effective propaganda isn't the kind we recognize, it's the beautiful stories we've never thought to question.